So, you want to know how to kill every single Slayer in the most efficient way? Well, I've got the video for you, as today I'm going to show you exactly how I do it and the ways that I've discovered to spawn and kill each Slayer as efficiently as possible. If you want a similar guide to this, but I go more in depth into the early, late, and mid-game strats, then let me know in the comments below. But let's get started. To start off, I'm going to show you my bosses per hour to give some comparison. For Revenant, I average 224 with a maximum of 245 bosses per hour. For Tarantula, I average 111 with a max of 125 bosses per hour. For Sven, I average 255 with a max of 300 bosses per hour. For Voidgloom, I average 82 with a maximum of 95 bosses per hour. And for Blaze, I average 81 with a maximum of 90 bosses per hour. The difference between my average and theoretical max is down to server lag, griefing, and skill issues, meaning that in 1 hour, I could achieve my max, but over 10, it goes down to my average. The equipment across the 5 Slayers are the exact same. This being the Rift Necklace, the David's Cloak, the Primordial Belt, and the Magmalord Gauntlet, or the Demon Slayer Gauntlet if you're doing Blaze, or the Shriveled Bracelet if you're doing Tarantula. For Revenant Horror, the setup is incredibly simple. All you need is Crimson Armor with Crown of Avarice, a Halberd of the Shredded, as well as a Bouquet of Lies. That's it. That's all you need. The auto pets being on Start Slayer quest, equip a ghoul pet, and on boss spawn, equip a golden dragon with a Hephaestus relic on. Now there's not really much of a strat when it comes to Revenants. All you really do is just use the Bouquet of Lies while swapping to your Halberd of Shredded a lot. For example, in this room here, instead of going and individually killing all of the zombies, which to be fair is a lot quicker than I thought, it's a lot quicker to just use the ability and swap the Halberd. It still gives you the combat wisdom and it's way faster. This strat really does come down to timing, as well as knowing how far the Bouquet of Lies can go. Like I know from here, it'd be able to get most, if not all of these zombies, but I know that these zombies down here, it would not be able to reach. The route that I like to run when it comes to spawning Revenant Horrors is kind of in a clockwise way, but also cutting back on yourself. So I'll run down here whilst using my Bouquet of Lies, and then I'll run down here, use the Bouquet of Lies, but I won't go down unless a mini boss spawns like that. I'll just run back up this way, killing these zombies here, run down here, kill these zombies, kill these with the Bouquet of Lies, and then come back here, and then that's one full rotation and the entire crypt cleared. Now what I'm going to do is run through it one more time without commentary, just so you can watch it again. That's basically it when it comes to spawning Revenants. Now when it comes to actually killing the boss, it's almost as simple. The only difference being I actually use the Halberd of the Shredded ability, as sometimes if this gets charged up enough, you can actually one-tap the boss. Unfortunately, I didn't do it that time, but it can happen, I promise. But that's it for Revenants. Let's move on to some Tarantulas. For Tarantulas, this is where it kind of ramps up a bit, especially in the items that you do need. To start off, you obviously need a Sting. You also want an Ultimate Wise Hyperion, a Mosquito Shortbow, as well as a Terminator. The damage armor stays the same at a Crown of Avarice with Crimson, and the equipment obviously swapping their Magmalord Gauntlet for a Shriveled Bracelet. However, there's actually a second armor set we're going to be using here. That second armor set being Infernal Aurora. Now, why are we using Infernal Aurora, you may ask? Well, Slayer mini-bosses tend to spawn at roughly the same percentages. From what I've seen, it's around 25, 50%, and 75% of your Slayer quest. Meaning out of the 10,000 combat XP I need, if I get 2,500, I should have a mini-boss by then. Now notice that I say should because it's not guaranteed. However, more times than not, you will get the mini-bosses around these percentages. And there's actually a funny little thing with the Primordial Jockey, which is the lower tier mini-boss of Tarantula tier 5. Where if I just get my stacks up on my Crimson, and then I go ahead and spawn a Primordial Jockey, you will see that it actually drops 2 sets of Tarantula Web and instantly spawns my boss. That's called kill duping. Now I am aware that this is technically a bug and is gonna get fixed at some point. However, for the time being, it's still in the game and I would recommend that you use it. But the kill duping isn't the only thing that we can abuse here. Remember how I said that mini bosses tend to spawn at the same percentages? Well, what if we used an armor set and an item which kills things incredibly fast while swapping back to our wisdom set? And this is exactly where armor swapping becomes prominent. See, the strat here is to use Aurora whilst going around and killing a bunch of spiders, and you already saw I instantly spawned a mini boss. And if I kept my Crimson stacks up to 9 or 10, I'd be able to instantly kill this mini boss and spawn my boss. Obviously, the reason why we need 9 or 10 stacks is because this does require kill duping. And to kill dupe the mini boss, you do need the crimson stacks. Now, I can show you a really good example of this after this boss here. You'll notice how my crimson stack right now is at 10. If I go around and kill some spiders really quickly, you'll see that I already spawned a boss, which instantly spawns my boss. Now, that was the higher tier mini boss, which doesn't require kill dupe, but even that will give you most of your Slayer quest, so by the time you spawn it, you will instantly spawn. So if I show you now, my crimson stacks are at the 10, I go and kill some, and I instantly spawn a primordial jockey, and if I kill it, as you can see, my boss immediately spawns. And that's the case 95% of the time you do Tarantula. And in some cases, you actually cocoon the mini boss, which means if I keep that mini boss alive, kill one spider, and then kill this mini boss, it spawns my boss. It's that simple. It's that easy. Now, if you want to know what I'm using to open my wardrobe so quickly and swap between the two armor sets, I'm using a mod called Skyblocker. If you go to the config, scroll down to shortcuts and scroll down a little bit more, you'll see shortcuts config. Open this and you can change it to whatever you want. To add one, simply click on the keybind one and press new shortcut and you'll see this appear right here. And then for swapping between the armor sets like this, it's also Skyblocker. If you search wardrobe, you'll see enable wardrobe helper. If you enable it, it'll make it so all of these 9 slots here are the equivalent hotkeys to your regular hotbar. So for example, if I want to select this slot here, which is my 9th slot, and I press my 9th slot keybind, it does it. Same with 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, and so on. Now we know how to spawn the boss. What about killing it? So similarly to spawning the boss itself, the strat to kill does require a bit of crimson swipe, but it's only for the very first hit. So you see the first hit, it does 1.7 million and then regens a little bit. This regen is incredibly slow. So if you're quick enough, you can get through the eggs and immediately put it into the next phase without any venomous stack. I do want to preface though that this requires a lot of damage. For majority of people, you probably do want a venomous stack, which is why I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you guys would like me to make a similar guide to this, but for early, mid, and late game. But you'll see once again there, I got through the eggs fast enough and it just instantly goes to the next phase. You don't need venomous stack, and because I don't need to venomous stack, that means I can pre-fire the eggs. Now there is a very specific way that I do like to pre-fire the eggs, and you'll see in the next boss. You'll see here, but I kind of like to stand a little bit back and run around the boss because it covers as much area as possible to pre-fire the eggs. And then the last bit of advice I have for you is to time your mosquito short bows. See, I never hold it, I manually click. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You see how that's a lot faster than just waiting to the eggs despawn? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It also means that I can go straight back to the boss faster. Now, if you're not comfortable with manually tapping your mouse, maybe you're not good with timings, you can rely on the sound cues as well. But if you remove duplex, there'll only be one arrow, which means that listening out for the sound cues will be a lot easier. But that's really about it for Tarantula. Let's go to Sven. For Sven, it kind of goes back to the more simple strats, only requiring a pooch sword, a Hyperion, which is barely used, an Infiniboom if you are planning on doing it in the jungle, but the hub works just as well, a Fire Veil, and an optional Plasma Flux. It depends if you need a little bit of extra damage to one tap. And the armor is obviously Crown of Avarice with Inferno Crimson. This one is extremely similar to Rev, but instead of throwing a Bouquet of Lies, you instead use a Fire Veil and swap to your pooch sword. So I've shown an example here. As you can see, all of these are dying. Instantly spawn a mini boss, and at the same time, I get the extra wisdom from the pooch sword. That's really the strat. You just use Fire Veil and go around holding a pooch sword. A Bouquet of Lies can work, but I prefer a Fire Veil, especially because it actually one-taps the mini bosses besides alphas. So if I go ahead and just spawn a mini boss, you'll see if I use Fire Veil, it instantly one-taps it. Now, the reason for the Hyperion is mainly the combat griefers. Sometimes you will have a griefer come up here and try to take all of the wolves, but if you just use the Hyperion, they should quickly leave. If you can't one-tap in Crimson with Pooch Sword, I would... Oh, what the fuck? I just got a legendary hound pet whilst recording this. But if you can't one-tap in Crimson, I would recommend that you just go over and swap to Massive Armor. The only problem is, if you already have Habanero Tactics on your Crimson, you will lose the Magic Find. But overall, it's worth the extra bosses per hour. Let's just move straight onto E-Man. Now, the strat for enderman is another hybrid one, similar to Tarantula. It requires an Atom Split Katana, an Ultimate White Hyperion, a Fatal Tempo Term, a Duplex Term, a Chimera 5 Ragnarok, an S West Flare, Crimson with a Crown of Avarice, and an Infernal Aurora set. The only difference being the fact that there's no mini-boss you can kill dupe, you kind of need to rely a lot on the 25, 50, and 75% mini-bosses. For example, if I go and spawn a mini-boss really quickly, you will see that when I kill it, it doesn't give me anywhere near my Slayer quest completion. However, what it does do is push me well over 50%, so in theory, all I need to do is kill a couple of endermen and a mini-boss spawns. Now, similarly to Tarantula, this doesn't always happen, however, it happens most of the time. So to recap, the spawn strat is basically the exact same as Tarantula, except instead of kill duping, you rely a lot more on the second mini-boss. And this is also exactly why you don't swap back to Aurora after you spawn the first mini-boss. That's because chances are you'll overdue a second mini-boss, and that second mini-boss will spawn your boss. And the extra downtime of swapping back to Aurora just is not worth it. Now for the actual boss itself, if you guys are at all familiar with the double skip, you'll notice a lot of similarities here. It is basically double skip, but I'm not double skipping. So the first thing I'll do as soon as the boss spawns is use my atom split ability, my fatal tempo term, and then swap to my duplex term a couple hours after. To show an example, after I get through this phase here, I usually DPS it, and then I swap to my duplex term to lower the hits phase a little bit more. I ideally want it to be between 60 and 80. After that, I'll stack fatal tempo, swap to duplex, DPS it more, and then swap back to Terminator to lower it even more. At this point, I'll use the katana, use fatal tempo, and I won't even swap to duplex because as you can see, fatal tempo will usually just deal with the rest. Now, I understand that that might have been a little bit quick, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another boss. And that's it for Enderman. Let's go on to Blaze. For Blaze, this is where all of the items needed ramps up heavily. I'm talking heavily. So once again, this is another hybrid strat. You need a Death Ripper, a Pyro Chaos, a Chimera 5 Hyperion, any rod. I prefer a Broken Rod as it doesn't actually cast a bobber when you use it, a Duplex Shortbow, I'm just using a Terminator, a Ragnarok Axe, an SOS Flare, Crimson with Crown of Avarice, obviously the Demon Slayer Gauntlet instead of a Magma Lord Gauntlet, and Infernal Aurora. Now to instantly answer a couple questions, why the Chimera Hyperion? Now the reason I use a Chimera Hyperion is for the Sub-Zero Wisp and its intelligence. As you can see, I have a textbook on it and it gives me 500 intelligence, which is doubled by Chimera. But why do you need the intelligence, you ask? Well, if I put on my Aurora and my Chimera Hyperion, you'll see that I don't actually one-tap. What you need to do to one-tap is actually get out a bottle of Jaya, consume it, and now you'd be able to one-tap. But why Chimera? Why can't you just use an Ultimate White Hyperion? If I get out my Ultimate White Hyperion, you'll see you can't one-tap. Obviously, this is with my setup. If you have, let's say, 10-starred Aurora, you would 100% be able to one-tap with an Ultimate White Hyperion. But for me specifically, I cannot. It doesn't happen. So that's why I use a Chimera Hyperion. Now the spawn is the exact same as Enderman, so I'm not going to go over the spawn. You simply just use Hyperion until you spawn a mini boss and then swap to Crimson. After that, you'll usually have a second mini boss spawn quite quickly. What I am going to go over, however, is the auto pets. Now there's two different auto pets that you can use. You can use the one that I use, which is on start Slayer quest, equip a Sub-Zero or your leveling pet. On enter combat, remedies G-Drag with a G-Drag exception and a spawn pet exception. On boss spawn with a skeleton. On kill entity, skeleton and zombie pigman, equip a wither skeleton. And on throw fishing rod, equip a relic G-Drag. Now the other variant of this, I'm pretty sure, is to remove the fishing rod and make it so when you kill a skeleton, equip the relic G-Drag. It doesn't really matter too much which one you do. Just go with whichever feels best for you. But since I don't really have to go over the spawn process, as we've already seen it with Enderman, I'm just going to go straight into the actual boss itself. What the hell? Bro, I'm literally... Why am I getting so lucky whenever I'm recording this? That was literally a scuffed boss as well. Like, I forgot something. Now, something I forgot to mention is why we use the Terminator. The reason we use the Terminator is for Twilight Arrow Poison. If I buy 2 stacks, you'll notice that it actually increases your damage by 1.1 times. Which is basically a 10% increase. Now, as soon as the boss spawns, you want to spam click because you want to try and get the Wither Skeleton Death Touch perk onto the Blaze. And then you want to get it through to Ashen, hit it with the Terminator, and then hit it twice with a Spirit, and then let Burning Vengeance proc. The reason why Burning Vengeance wants to proc is because then you can save Spirits. So as you can see, it's going to go to the next phase with 2 hits left on Spirit. The reason why we want to keep it on Spirit is so that we can immediately start attacking as soon as we kill Quasi. As you can see, it had 2 Spirits. We can go straight to attacking it. Rod swap. And then kill the boss. Now, similarly to Enderman, I understand that this is a little bit quick. However, what I'm going to do is just do another boss. So to recap, hit it for the death touch, shoot it with a term, and then hit twice with Spirit and let Burning Vengeance proc. Use Ragnarok Axe, kill the demon, and then get it through to the next demon phase. This time it only has 1 Spirit, which means I know as soon as I kill this demon, it's going to go straight into Auric. And there we go. That's how to do Blaze. If you're a bit confused on when to rod swap, I usually rod swap after I'm done with the Auric hits and it goes to Crystal. Although it doesn't really matter too much when you rod swap, as it only takes literally like 0.1 of a second. But that's it. That's the entire Slayer guide.